Around Jill's turn, so you guys can watch her spin. So make sure, double check you got it on the light snap in. There you go. Just relax your shoulders. Okay. Yeah, go and hold it. Yeah, just really let it. There you go. See how her shoulder, right? So all these muscles in the back of the neck, right? So if I gave Jill a massage, feels good. Right? It's soft right here. But before, when that arm was out here and this was all tight, not only tight in the shoulders, but tight in the neck, right? You know what that ends up doing. It ends up causing, that's like stress. All right, so really, really relax. All right, there you go. Snap it on through there. Very good. Going up and pause at the top. Snap it through. All right, come on around, Bob. There you go. Same thing, you got the light end. All right, so Bob's going to wind it up. All right, so he's learning a little bit, but then there's still this looks okay because I don't see the tension up here. So relax that arm just a little. Let it come in. There. See the shoulder? Everything settles. All right, then go ahead and snap it from there. There you go. Yeah, wind it up and stop. Yeah, you're too used to that straight arm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep, there you go. And then snap it through. Yep. So what we're finding is the rotation of the body just facilitates. You're not going to necessarily rotate too much faster. Right? Come on out. Come on in here, Vicky. You're not going to necessarily rotate faster, but what you're going to do is create a little more range. So if you take the range of the snap, so let's say I have a snapper that's only this, that only snaps from this distance. Right? And then I just add range to the snap. Well, now I'm going to hit it a lot further because I just added range to the speed. So go ahead, Vicky. Go back and stop. All right, so Vicky's worked hard. I saw her first few swings where her swing was very, very short and this arm was very stiff and it was low. Right? Mm-hmm. But she's learning already, so now she's already softening. It's more like a baseball backswing right here. That's what it feels like, right? Yeah. I'm out of the way. Go ahead, snap that. There you go. So you feel the speed that you're able to create. Go ahead and do that again. Good. Now wind up and stop on this one. Just pause for me. Relaxed. Now, when you snap, I want this hip to pivot. There you go. So you push it out of the way as you snap. So now what she's able to do is she's just added more speed. She's relaxed. It's got the club in a better position. The club is actually going to track onto the back of the ball better. It's actually going to come, because where you were kind of low, what's called low and inside. And then you didn't have the snap in your arms. You're trying to do it all with your body. So we just added arm snap, arm speed, and where we added it from was a more vertical position. So now when she snaps, she's snapping more down on the back of the ball. Whereas before she was kind of low and then using her body to lift the ball off the ground. And then we added one more element of speed right there in her hip, where she's able to not only, like a baseball player, right? Not only able to crack the arms, but step into it and create the speed with a loading and a releasing of that hip, right? So these are just general things that what I do. If you take a look at your saber, there's a formula that I created, and I just wrote it right there on the saber. It says athletic efficiency equals strength plus speed, right? So if you know strength plus speed equals power. That's basically the definition of power. So you have power, and then on the other side of that formula, you have timing and technique. So that's like your form, right? So if you have really good timing, really good technique, but you're lacking power, or speed and strength, you use the heavy and the light ends to develop that. If you already have speed and strength, but you need to improve your timing and your technique, well then you're using the squareness, you're using the ball for your timing and your technique to help you to improve on your accuracy. Right? So there's four things, and I like to call it AC/DC. Right? AC/DC. A is accuracy, C is consistency, D is distance, and the other C is control. right? That's it. That's it in golf. Every one of us wants, when we're analyzing, we talked about the spiritual kind of this emotional, psychological piece. We want to do it for fun. We want to do it for just enjoyment, social. But then ultimately, some of us will actually want to get better at the game because we know it's going to improve that other stuff, right? So the AC/DC component, you want to improve your accuracy, your consistency, your distance, and your control. The difference between accuracy and control is accuracy is I hit it pretty straight. Control is I want to curve it on purpose, left to right, right to left, hit it higher, hit it lower. So that's ball control. Whereas that's more the advanced level, and it goes in that order. Right? So you improve your accuracy, you can do that first. Right? You can then, if you're hitting it straight, but maybe hitting 50% in the air and 50% along the ground, well then the next thing you want to improve is your consistency. So you get 80%, 90% in the air. Once you're feeling like you've got some consistency, then you want to add some speed. Because you just hit it accurately further. And then you add a little spice in there. Okay, I want to be able to control my ball. So that's a higher level piece. I want to control my ball to one corner of the green or the other, right? So when you're working on your game, you've got 5 elements, right? That psychological element, oh, I'm anxious, I'm nervous, I'm playing with a new group of people I've never played before. You guys can have a seat, and we'll kind of wrap everything up here. Yeah. I'll just lean them up there. Thank you. So your analysis program, yeah, there's water, perfect. Now that we just worked ourselves out, I'll grab that from you.
I was going to take it home.
Oh, you are? Okay. Well, I got my credit card swiper.
How much are it? Yeah, how much are it?
Yeah, $119.99. This is a great little tool and a bunch of instructional videos and stuff online too. But when you're thinking about how you get better, don't just think, oh, I want to get better. I'm just going to plop down in front of Golf Channel Academy and I'm going to listen to Michael Breed or, one of those guys. They have great information. And Martin Hall, fantastic instructors, and they serve a purpose. It's entertaining, short little bits, maybe gets you excited about learning something, but what I want you to do is before you choose to let that information get in your head, run it through those 5 areas. Because what you might realize right away is, you know what, I don't actually have to focus on the equipment side of things. I just need to focus on the technique. Or actually, I got tightness in my upper back and my shoulders. I can learn all this stuff on TV I want. That's called disassociation, where one part of your body stops and the other one moves. I can learn all that kind of stuff because intellectually it's stimulating and you want to learn it, but then if my body isn't cooperating, well then I can't actually pull that off. So then run it through those 5 and pick the one that you want to focus on, right? And then just know that really in your golf game you want to pursue improvement based on the accuracy, consistency, distance, and control, and you really can't skip it. You really can't skip a step, because if you're starting to add distance but you don't really have consistency, probably going to be frustrating for you in the game of golf, right? If you could have one, you would probably say, oh, I want accuracy. I don't care if I don't get it in the air every time, as long as I know it's going straight. And then it follows suit, right? So what we do, we got about 10 or 15 minutes left. I just want to ask any questions that you might have or answer any questions that you might have. And some of the stuff that we've talked through may have made you think of something. Part of my role as a coach is also to help you organize that toolbox of information. So like I said, you have a history that you're going to filter everything through. And I may have today busted a hole in one of your theories, or I may have made a comment that made you think, gosh, I've been working on that thing, that stiff left arm thing, or whatever it is. I've been working on that, and you're saying I shouldn't? How am I supposed to change 15 years of doing that, or whatever? So let's talk about it. Anybody got any questions or comments right away?
So how come everybody says to keep that straight?
Yeah, so in power production, right, like I said, the golf ball doesn't know what you're doing. athletically, there's different ways to create that. So ultimately you have to create speed. So traditionally that's called a use of a lever, right? It's a fulcrum or a lever, so if that's longer. So a simple explanation of that would be, if I had two sabers, I got the short saber and the long saber, and I had to lift something heavy off the ground, and I had a fulcrum here in the middle, and I propped the short stick down, that's hard for me to lift something off the ground. Now, if I had a much bigger element, a much bigger lever arm, right, then I can easily lift it. Like anything that you do, a teeny little hobby hammer doesn't hammer the nail into the board as solidly as a bigger hammer, right? So when you leverage a body part, they call it width of arc. So if you have a wide arc, a big stretch, you can create a lot of speed with that width and that lever. The problem is can you obtain all of that width with still having mobility, still having flexibility? The problem is, as we get older, is we don't have the mobility or the flexibility to even be able to leverage any speed from that tension. Because there's a difference between saying, I'm going to increase my lever arm for power, or I'm just simply going to tighten my muscles as tight as I can to give the appearance of a straight line, because that's what I've been told, right? So when you see all these pictures of these great players, in fact, we'll do this little exercise. Since you asked, Violet, come on up here. I'm going to have you stand on this side. Okay, so here I am, tour player. I hit the ball over 300 yards. Not a big guy, but I create a lot of power, right? So I want you to feel my biceps right here, right? Pretty strong, yep. Right? So they're tight, yep. Right? Now here's my real backswing. I'm not going to swing forward. That's why I had you stand on that side. Here's my real backswing. Does my left arm look straight?
It's pretty straight.
Slightly bent. That would be, that would be locked, right? So here's Violet. Now come on over here and feel that same arm, right? It's soft. Yeah. There isn't tension. So there's length and width of arc and mobility, some stability, but it's not tight, right? So now come on over here. That's where I want to get to. Right, so squeeze that arm. Okay, now watch what happens if all I do is straighten it. It got tighter, right? And all I did is go from here to there. So there is creating a lever for power, but at what cost? Can you create a nice big rotation and this huge lever and get your arms way up here and not have any tension? Awesome, go do that. But if you're like here and you're straining, how do I keep this arm straight? All it's going to do is add more tension, and it's going to slow everything down. So, right, just like Jacques and Bob, if I can get you guys to do that, look where the club just made it to. And then you can snap that thing through. So does that help?
So you're using your rotation instead of the, when you have it up high.
It's kind of the length, basically the math on it is, if you can take a tool and put 5 miles an hour on it, and that 5 miles an hour goes over 5 feet, or you can take that same thing and move it over 10 feet in the same amount of time, the acceleration component of that adds more force to the impact. So that's where that whole straight left arm thing comes in, because if you're kind of stretching out and you're getting back in here, then as you turn, there's an idea that you've added a longer lever. So the reason why that was taught for 20 years was, again, remember when we started and I said, the analyst on TV will make a statement based on their own feelings, not based on what's really happening. So they don't go ask the player, right? So we're in the Jim Flick Performance Center, and he coached Jack Nicklaus for a long time before he passed away. That was Jack's coach, right? Other than Jack Lumpkin, right? I think. Anyway, if I got that wrong, I need to clarify it. But basically, you saw Jack Nicklaus get this big high turn. The knee is up here, the arm, the hands are way up in the air. So because he was the greatest player of all time, a lot of people started to replicate a lot of that movement. So that's where a lot of the long arm stuff came from. And then scientists like Golf Machine, a gentleman, Homer Kelly, wrote a book called The Golf Machine, and he was an engineer, and he broke it all down, and he said that levers and rotation and all this kind of stuff was to help the player hit the ball further. So that's kind of where a lot of that stuff comes from. But the question, just like that filter we're talking about, the filter is at what cost? If you get a chunk of information, you got to filter it through some of this knowledge that you're learning, and hopefully the information I'm sharing is going to improve the way the filter works. Right? Do you have a question or a comment? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So his question or comment was, if I add more length to my swing and I just pull down harder and I create more speed, is that going to help me hit it further, which would be great because he already hits it pretty straight. Well, that's awesome. If you're in that category where you're saying, okay, I'm accurate, pretty consistent, I just need to hit it further, this is what you do. You add those elements. And the main thing is you're adding it from a place of no tension. You're adding it from an athletically free place. Very, very important. Yeah.
Wasn't Jack swing? He would come up, he would take away, and he is.
Yep, he had the.
So that would get him with his straight arm.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Right. So if Jack left that foot on the ground and he had that straight arm, his backswing might only get to here. So what he did is he lifted this front leg, which allowed his hips and shoulders to turn just a little bit more.
That's hard to hit. When you come, I mean, I could never if I moved that much.
Mm-hmm.
Hit the ball.
It's his swing, like Furyk has his swing, Jack had his swing.
Yeah, and so.
They do a lot of, like Arnie says, swing your swing.
Swing your swing. Right, you have to own your swing for sure. And in your comment, you threw out fear. You said, I could never make that. I'd be either worried or I've experienced mishitting it. Okay, so have the courage to try something. If it doesn't work, go back to the other way next week. Right? So there's certain times where it's perfectly okay in that safe environment. Like I said earlier, you gotta have the courage to fail, but you also have the wisdom to know where and when to fail. Right? So if you've said, you know what, gosh, Sally, I just play socially, but I'll play your member guest, I'll be your guest and I'll come play with you. I really don't like competition, but I will. And then you're driving to Sally's member guest and you're thinking, gosh, Craig told me to just go for it, have courage to fail. Probably not the right time, right? But if you're on the driving range and Jock's over there hitting balls and you're like, maybe I should actually hit a few balls once this year, right? So you go over there and you find a spot on the driving range and you just try it. You try to create some of that more mobility and you create. So when it's time to let that thing go, make sure it's on that first hole where the fairway's wide open. Don't do it on the second hole when you're trying to hit it over a pond or whatever.
Just a question.
Yeah.
Takeaway when you start out, is that knee, are you planted or do you let this knee go a little bit?
Yeah.
To take it to hit?
Yeah, good question. So if I'm rotating into my backswing, what is my back leg doing to support the turn? Basically, right? How does that look and how does that, you're talking about my backswing leg? Like if I'm going this way, this leg, or are you talking about my front leg?
No, the back one, like take it away to get to here to.
Right, so yeah. So I'm taking away my backswing, right? So, yeah, so I'm loading up onto something, right? So if you think of a baseball player, you always see him, you know, the home plate's right there, batter's box, and typically you'll see them kind of sit back and kind of squat back a little bit into that back leg. So what I'm doing is I'm getting ready to rotate. Now, if I only had one leg, I would have to load and rotate off of one leg, right? Now, because I have two, I can split myself in half, and I can load and rotate on the back half, and then I can unload and rotate on the forward half, right?
I understand why those batteries put all that extra, like, when we were kids, we were told to stand there and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that ball is coming so fast. Why put it amazes me how they can get their body to move that fast at that thing coming in a millisecond.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't understand.
Well, and that's, truthfully, that's just the way it goes, right? World records get broken because people figure out how to have less fear and how to try something new and inventive and different, and then own it and take it to that next level. And so the coolest thing to me is, as an adult learner, giving yourself permission to take that challenge and that leap to do something different that you've never done before. Who cares? Whatever. You can totally mess it up in the first week that you try it, but then if you persevere through it, guess what's going to happen? You're going to take your game to a whole nother level, right? So as you don't become too comfortable, as just as a spice of life message, don't let yourself be too comfortable stuck where you're doing. Because the saying goes, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you always got, right? So have a little courage to fail and try something new and see what happens. As long as it's safe and you have that wisdom, because safety is not just physical safety. I don't want to swing too hard. I pop my elbow out, or I don't want to do it in this particular tournament because I'll be embarrassed, or I don't want to do it 100 times in a row because psychologically I'm going to feel like I'm failing at this thing too much, right? You don't want to beat yourself up too much.
Tempo, what you mean is that you get a good tempo.
Tempo. Mm-hmm. So when you're working on timing of something, right? So tempo, tick, tock, it's just time. It's a measure of time, right? When you have rhythm, there's athletic power built up in that rhythm, right? So when you're first learning a dance of some kind, you're like, oh, how do I do, you're like robotic, right? But you're in time. Well, how do I then move with rhythm in time? And then, once you move with rhythm in time, there's a single moment in time that we're all pursuing, and that's the collision, that moment of collision. So when you take something like I was working with Vicky on, if you take that club and you've wound up and you've stored up that energy, you're athletically, rhythmically rotating your hips out of the way, there's a one moment in time where all the energy explodes at that moment of impact. But you have to have the courage to swing like that, swing that fast, because you could miss it. All right, just make sure you're off on the side of the range and nobody's watching. That's the wisdom component of it. So when you improve timing, right, what you're doing is you're transferring energy. It's energy transfer, right? So come on up here.
So you have to hit hand.
No, you have to hit at the right time, right? So when two objects collide, they share that collision force, right? Now, if